Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lunch with Leaders, a proud production of Leaders with Vision, a civic organization that embraces no borders and welcomes all citizens to join to become knowledgeable about the issues that affect our daily lives. Today we have a particularly interesting topic, which is the recovery district schools. And I know that there are many people who are going to hear this via our Facebook or on our website that say, I don't have kids in school, not my problem. Or you're going to say, my kids are in private school, not my problem. Well, I'm here to tell you it is your problem. We cannot run parallel school systems and without expecting to either raise taxes or lower services. And we've already seen the fact that the special ed children lost $4 million. So I think that's kind of an indicator. We need everybody to get involved and to be engaged in such a manner as to become informed so that when issues come up, you can call your legislator and let them know your feelings about the topic. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to try to make you think. So please join us as we begin our program. And we have a little vignette, and I would like to ask a lady who has been fighting a good battle, Hillary Renshaw, who is the PTA president of Mayfair School, to stand up, come take my microphone, and I'd like you to spend 1 minute telling your story. Here.
Thank you for the time. I'm Hillary Renshaw, PTA president from Mayfair. And, we have had just an incredible experience so far at Mayfair Laboratory School. I'm a first grader. We've had an administration that has welcomed parents with open arms, asked how they can help us be successful. We've had teachers who are communicating with us weekly in newsletters, who are inviting us into the classroom with creative learning activities, and who are really nurturing and providing a really challenging curriculum for, I feel, for my child. We also have had a huge response in parent support. Parents have stepped forward daily, calling me how they can help, what they can do. We've organized a National Day of Service where parents came in and painted basketball hoops and the teacher's lounge and planted trees from local donations that we were able to receive. We really feel like after searching for a long time that this is the spot where our child is the happiest and they will receive a great education. We're excited that as parents we have a choice, that we have this choice to send them to this school, and we are also excited that that it can be we feel like it can be a great institution, that it can kind of be this model institution as we are paired with the LSU Lab School, that we have this opportunity to collaborate with them, which we know is a proven model of success, and that we can do that in a public school setting is something that's really exciting for a lot of parents. There's 2 other parents here today from LSU Lab School, from the Mayfair Elementary School as well. So we're just excited as a group of parents to be able to promote that school and hope that it stays around, that we can show our success. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Hillary. When we started this off, we didn't know we were going to have the pleasure of Hillary joining us. So parents and children being first on our agenda, okay, now we're going to defer to and ask Carolyn Hill to come up as the highest ranking or elected official on this panel. Carolyn is a member of the Bessie board, and she has agreed to come forward and share her knowledge.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to be here today, and I would like to thank Ms. Armstrong for inviting me as well. I think this is a very important topic that we need to discuss today, because when you look at the Recovery School District and you look at things that has transpired throughout the state, but especially in Baton Rouge. I think that the community need to be informed, they need to be educated, and to understand the policies. But not only the policies, but the practice and the implementation of the Recovery School District. So I just thank you for being here. Ask as many questions as you would like, and hopefully we can answer to the best of our knowledge and to the best of our ability. So thank you once again.
Okay. Next on the panel will be the next ranking elected official.
Not working.
Can't hear me. Is that it? Now can you? Okay. The next person to speak will be an elected official on the local level. Please welcome Craig Freeman of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. Craig?
Again, Gene, thank you for having me as well. And so I also see one of my colleagues here, Tarvald Anthony Smith, and so I wanted to recognize him as well. I think Gene asked to kind of talk a little bit about charter schools, and one of the things I wanted to make sure you knew was that I think the East Baton Rouge Parish school system has actually approved more charters than any other parish in the state besides Orleans, and Orleans has other issues. And so East Baton Rouge Parish school system is not hostile to charters. One of the things that I believe, and I know my colleagues share with me, is excellence is the real requirement for us. In all of the charters that we have approved, we hold them to the same standards of excellence that we hold for our teachers. And so we expect excellent things from our teachers. Our teachers are fantastic in the system. The charter operators that we have worked with have also been excellent. And so some of the concerns that I have are as different people come from different parts of Louisiana and the country, is one, are they excellent where they are? And two, are they going to be able to share that excellence here? And so I was just talking a little bit about kind of the difference between a bakery and Panera. It's easy to make great bread in your store, but can you make bread in a store 1,600 miles away is the real huge question that I have. I've got 4 kids that are in the system. You only get one chance to educate a child well, and I want to make sure that all the children in the parish get those excellent opportunities. One of the things that I think that we've done as a system is we've tried to have charters that complement the great things that we do. And so when somebody comes in and they say, we want to really care for children, and we want to devote as much time and energy as we possibly can to children, well, I know that happens in our schools every day. And so when I go to a Polk Elementary, when I go to a Park Elementary, I know that the children in that school are loved. I know that those children are cared for, and I know that we are doing everything we can to accelerate their education as much as we possibly can. And so when someone comes from far away and says that's what they want to do, that's no different from what we want to do. And so I hate to say that I don't trust them, but I don't. Those words don't resonate with me. There's a new charter that operates this year that focuses on dyslexia. It's something that, as a system, we have not been able to do as effectively as I would like. And so when they come in and they add, I think that's a fantastic complement to the things that we do, and those are the kind of charters that I welcome. Thrive is another charter that we approved last year that is a boarding charter. And so we don't have an opportunity for kids to learn 24 hours a day, at least with them 5 days a week. And so that is a complementary charter that I think adds to the educational opportunities in East Baton Rouge Parish. But for the people that say we want to do essentially the same thing that you're doing, we just think we can do it better, I think the answer is, time and time again, we haven't seen that work. I think one example would be a person who I think is a fantastic educator in Sister Judith, who was the principal at St. Joseph's, who said that she was going to take over an elementary school in East Baton Rouge Parish. And I think that she's doing a fantastic job. She applied for another charter. But at the time, the charter that she was operating was still an F school. And what we said was, we'd be happy to work with you when you move things to a different place, but for now, we'd like you to focus on the school that you have. And so we don't want you opening new bakeries before the bakery that you have works well. And so those are the concerns that we have for anybody. You may be successful in one place, but one of the real concerns that I always have is, so much of it is based on the character and competence of a leader. And when those leaders move on to new bakeries, how do we maintain that level of quality in the places that we have here? And so those are the concerns that we have in East Baton Rouge Parish. Again, I think what we want for our kids is excellence, and I think we want opportunities. And so, all of my children are different. And so, when one child needs glasses, I don't buy glasses for all four. I buy glasses for the child that needs it. And I think that charter schools can be a great opportunity to give glasses to a child, and another child may need something else. And so, I hope that we can get to a place. And I know, I've worked with my colleagues over at the RSD. I think that that is their goal as well. And so, I think that we can work together to find good opportunities for excellence in education, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to talking more about today.
Okay. Are we on again? Ladies and gentlemen, now we will go to Dana Peterson, who is the assistant or deputy superintendent? Deputy superintendent of the Recovery School Districts in Louisiana.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's okay, you can clap for the recovery school. When I talked to Jean, first of all, I want to thank Jean and the Leaders with Vision group for hosting this this event. When I talked to Jean yesterday, and she said to me, "You and your wife must be like James Carville and Mary Madeline when it comes to the governor's education agenda." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. I'm not coming to defend the governor's education agenda, but I enthusiastically come to talk about the work of the Recovery School District and work that I've had the pleasure of being involved, both as a private citizen and now as a deputy superintendent for external affairs for the district." I'm enthusiastic to talk about it because our work touches the lives of so many kids when you're working in public education. And I'd like to just talk a few moments about what I think the sort of threats and opportunities are on the public education landscape, not only in the state, but also in Baton Rouge specifically. If you think about nearly 200,000 students in the state are in schools that are basically rated as a D or an F school. That doesn't bode well for the future of the state. Now, that's not to point the fingers about who's responsible for it. I think even when you look in Baton Rouge, people, there are enough blame to go around for all parties. But and in Baton Rouge, that is even more acute. About 64% of kids, public school kids in the parish, are going to school in a school that's rated a D or an F school. So when we think about the Recovery School District and the work of charter schools and the work of the local parish system, it's very fitting that we're here at lunch today really having a deep dialogue and deep discussion about it, because it's really important, right? Those statistics don't bode well for the state. They don't bode well for our communities, for any kid, but much less thousands of kids who are in schools that aren't meeting their needs and certainly aren't meeting the needs of this community. If you look at Baton Rouge, that's even more acute and focused in northern Baton Rouge, in which the overwhelming majority of kids are in a school like this. So it's a unique, certainly landscape and problem and issue, and I'm glad to be here talking about it. I'll tell folks a little bit about the Recovery School District. We have, of course, it was created prior to Hurricane Katrina by the state legislature as a mechanism to deal with schools that were chronically underperforming. And as Ms. Johnson knows, it was originally thought about in the context of New Orleans. But as we know, that issue, as I said, is around a number of parishes in the state. And so the RSD has about 74 schools now Most of those, of course, in New Orleans, where we have about 57 charter schools. We still have a number of direct run schools, but of course our mission is not to continue to run schools directly ourselves. In Baton Rouge, we have now 7 schools that we run directly. But we also have a school in Point Coupee Parish. We have a school in St. Helena Parish. We have a couple of schools also in Caddo Parish. So collectively, the Recovery School District is serving about 33,000 kids around the state. And in Baton Rouge, specifically, roughly 2,000 kids, again, mostly in North Baton Rouge. I want to talk a little bit about why I got involved and what my role is, and then the Recovery School District's work here, specifically in Baton Rouge. Prior to working for the Recovery School District, I had the pleasure of working for a labor union, actually, the Service Employees International Union. And we were representing mostly support workers in school systems around the New Orleans and Jefferson Parish region. But many of those workers were really underpaid, and they were certainly fighting for adequate wages, adequate health care, et cetera, from local school systems. But what you found is many of our members were parents, and their kids were in the public school system. In fact, they could not afford to send their kids to private schools. And there's around them this sort of burgeoning charter school movement. And so I started to do research, look around, try to get involved, and ended up serving on the board of a group of charter schools in New Orleans, and worked with that group as we really worked to engage the local community in the work that we were doing. It's an organization called First Line Schools. It ended up serving now, it has about 5 schools in New Orleans. And I got a chance to be a real part of that. But, you know, public education is one of those things. Once you get involved, start learning a little bit, you want to learn a lot more. The more you learn, the more you realize the importance of the work that's out in front of you, the more committed you become to it. And that's, it's really I'm getting the finger, but that's really my experience and how I got involved with the Recovery School District. And then after that, I started, when Superintendent Patrick Dobar became superintendent of the Recovery School District, he asked me would I join the RSD to really continue the kind of work we were doing with First Line. And that's really not only figuring out how to transform schools, but how to work with local communities to actually do that work. Because what you find is many people are just like you around this table. You not only want to identify the problem, but you also want to roll your sleeves up and get to work to come up with a solution. And that's why I work for the Recovery School District. I'm enthusiastic about that work. It's my role in Baton Rouge, where we are seeking to transform the schools that we have in North Baton Rouge. It's why we created what we call the Baton Rouge Achievement Zone. It's why I work to identify a group of local stakeholders to work with us in an advisory capacity. Many of them, or some of them, East Baton Rouge School Board members and Craig Freeman himself, because we all thought that, as he said, right, we can work together to bring solutions to kids who are in schools who deserve every opportunity that young lady and her family described at Mayfair. We want all kids to have that opportunity, not just kids in magnet schools. We feel that very passionately. I know I do myself. We are not perfect. We are really working to improve upon processes, and I'm sure many people today will take an opportunity to highlight our shortcomings, and that's fine. We can take that. But we also want to work with folks to come up with solutions to those problems. It's very important, not just for us, but it's important for the lives of kids. And so that's the spirit in which I come to the work. So I look forward to the discussion.
Don't sit down, Dana, because we need to know more about it. We're extending you 2 minutes in the sense of fairness. Could you please continue talking?
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I don't offer this many, but it's been so hard to get somebody and official capacity to come here. As we really are very grateful, and please extend this time at least 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. I was looking for the exit door. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But anyway, as I was saying, we're enthusiastic about working with this local community. As I said, to figure out many of those problems that do exist within our school system, that exist within the public education system. I was reading something recently about the guy who's the Minister of Education in Finland. And Finland, of course, is getting a lot of attention and notoriety around the world for its successes in with public education. And one of the things, of course, when he goes around the country and around the world, people ask him a lot of questions, and people, ask him quite often, like, "What's the difference? What are you doing there?" And he really talked about the uniqueness of their system in that there aren't very many private schools, if any, in the country. In fact, all kids are public school kids, and therefore all public school kids really get a great opportunity and a great shot at a good learning environment that meets their needs. And I think as a country, as a state, as a local community, our challenge is to ensure not that there are a number of high-performing magnet schools across a city or a parish. That's actually not the challenge. The real challenge is that there is a great and excellent school that can serve every kid in that parish, and that every kid in that parish has an equal opportunity to get to that school. That's our mission. Now, a lot of people will go out, and we're guilty of it. We talk about the successes of New Orleans. Well, I don't see them as successes. I do see them as great progress. When we look at a system that less than a quarter of the kids were on a basic level. And basic is interesting. If you use a basketball analogy, if you were teaching kids how to play basketball, and you told the kid that here's the goal here, but the object of the game is not to get the ball in the basket, but just get the ball up to the backboard. That was what basic was. And so now we have nearly 60% of our kids in New Orleans who can accomplish that. Are we proud of that work? Absolutely. The strategies we're using are working. But is that a success? We have a long way to go. We want our kids to reach mastery. We want all kids to be prepared for college and career. Not that all kids will go to college, but we want kids who decide not to go to college, they decide because they have other opportunities, not because they don't have the skills to get there. So that's our mission, that's our focus. When we look at the work in Baton Rouge, we talk a lot about charter school operators. Of course, it's a strategy we really believe in, but it's really rooted in a set of values, we think. We believe in parents having choice. We believe in educators having the autonomy to get the job done, and we believe in holding everyone accountable. And I think charter schools give us an opportunity to enact those values in a way that hopefully will lead to better outcomes for kids. So our plan all along has been, yes, we want to recruit high-quality operators. We want to recruit them whether they exist here, whether they exist in New Orleans, or whether they exist in some other part of the country. But if they're showing success with students, we want to create a pathway for them to operate schools and give them what I would call the privilege of educating our kids in Baton Rouge. But if they're unsuccessful, then we'll certainly hold them accountable. That's our role. That's our job. And so again, I just got the stop sign. So I will quit and look forward to your questions and your dialogue. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana. We appreciate that. And for all of you, if you didn't get a card or need an extra card, cards are on the table, or raise your hand and a card will be brought to you for you to write out your questions for this panel. I'm sure there's a lot of questions in this room. Okay, that having been said, I will introduce our next speaker, which is Tom Aswell, who is an expert in the challenging issues of trying to get information from the Department of Education regarding recovery school districts. Tom?
Thank you, Gene. I just told her a moment ago that the definition of an expert, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So if you want to call me an expert, I guess I qualify. I'm the publisher of Louisiana Voice, the political blog, and I'm very proud of the fact that mine and Robert Mann's blogs were named 2 of the top 100 political blogs in the country by the Washington Post earlier this year. So it is with a little bit of pride that I say that. Last July, by the way, let me just back up one quick minute. I'm a product of a public school system. I wasn't the brightest bulb in the drawer, I'll tell you that. I managed to graduate from college after 8 years with a bachelor's. I flunked out the first semester, went into the Air Force, came out, worked a while, and then went back to college and graduated magna cum barely. And but I want to say that some of my classmates at Ruston High School have excelled, and I mean really excelled. We have one classmate who is a mezzo-soprano with the Metropolitan Opera in New York. I have another classmate who is a world-renowned heart surgeon who lives in Mobile, Alabama, and a third classmate who developed LASIK surgery, and he's on the faculty at Vanderbilt University. So these are products of the public school system, so it kind of makes me chafe just a little bit when I hear someone like Governor Jindal paint teachers with the same broad brush as not being worthy. That irritates me quite a bit, so I just wanted to get that out there. In July, I toured some of the schools in the Recovery School District in New Orleans. I went down there with a guy named Coach Frank. You know Coach Frank?
I do.
Yep, good man. And he tried to point out some of the problems in the Recovery School District there in Orleans Parish, and promptly had his contract terminated. And he's now a teacher in Jefferson Parish, but he's still on that same white charging horse. Coach Frank took me on a tour of some of the schools in the Recovery School District. George Washington Carver High School, right there, right off the old Desire Housing Project in the 9th Ward. That school, 8 years post-Katrina, still consists of T buildings. There's not a permanent building on the grounds anywhere. The school does not have a library. This is a high school, people, a public high school with no library. That is inexcusable. The cafeteria is a T building. I've visited the football team. Now, this is a high school where the running back with the old Indianapolis Colts, Marshall Faulk, graduated. And last year, George Washington Carver made it to the quarterfinals in Quad A football finals. 5A football finals. This school's athletic training facilities are deplorable. It's in a T building. The lockers are plastic boxes on the floor that anybody can get into and steal anything if they get in there. The bench, the weight benches are something that you and I would throw out on the curb, I promise you. By contrast, another school there, Holy Cross, which is a private school, a Catholic school, largely white school, and Coach Frank said white except for the black athletes they recruit. If you can throw a football or bounce a basketball, you can go to Holy Cross. Bessie deemed it appropriate to award them $4 million. This is a private school, people, that Bessie gave $4 million of taxpayer funds to. Okay? Now, back to George Washington Carver. 8 years post-Katrina, that school is still sitting there in T buildings. That's just not acceptable in anybody's book. Why is this the case? I don't know. George Washington Carver has had $39,600,000 allocated to build a new school. It's not because of shortage of state funds. This is FEMA money. The money is there. All you have to do is build those kids a school. I told Coach Frank, I said, Coach Frank, I know why the school hasn't been built. The kids here are the wrong color. That's it. That's the bottom line. And that is a shame, people. You're keeping these kids in a cycle of failure. And that can't go on. And I hold the Bessie Board and John White and Bobby Jindal accountable. Thank you.
Well, I guess that brings back the old joke about are you Catholic or public? Okay, but there seems to be some blurring of the lines there. Well, we started this whole program off with a parent, and now we're going to end with a parent. Belinda Davis is a PTA president and a parent. And Belinda, would you come up here and tell us of your experiences and give us your thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I should also confess that I'm also a public policy scholar who studies implementation and evaluation of policies. And so I'd like to talk about my experience with charter schools versus public schools in that vein. So I have 3 boys in the public school system, and then I am also the president of One Community, One School District, which is part of the reason I have been delving into how charter schools and fundings work. And so I'd like to say a couple of things first. When we talk about the charter experience in Louisiana, most of the charter experience that goes on around the state is not going to look like New Orleans charter experience. New Orleans charter experience was the whole-scale chartering of almost an entire district in a very short matter of time after Katrina. What the chartering experience is going to look like in the rest of the state is going to look a lot like what's happening in Baton Rouge, where you have the Bessie Board authorizing charters to come into a district, a school district authorizing charters to come in, and then you have schools that are being taken over and placed into the RSD. All right, so what's going on in Baton Rouge is what the rest of the state is going to experience when it comes to charters. And so what I'd like to argue for you is that charter schools are actually advantaged over traditional public schools in the current system. Charter schools in and of themselves are not bad, but the way our state has set up the charter experience has advantaged those schools and disadvantaged traditional public schools. And here's why. First, there is this idea that when a traditional public school loses a child to a charter school, that loss is basically, is made up for the fact that they don't have to educate that child, because that child's education and its MFP, their minimum foundation program dollars, are given to the charter. But so think about this for a minute. Charter schools are open admission schools where they don't have a neighborhood attendance zone. So let's say a charter school opens up and it draws 200 students from 10 local neighborhood traditional public schools, all right, over all of those grades. What that means is each one of those 10 schools may lose 20 students, but that doesn't over all of their grades, but that doesn't translate into savings for the local school district, because the loss of students doesn't mean that those local schools get to close a classroom, right? Close an entire building, that there are basically economies that cannot be dealt with this idea that every time a traditional school loses a child to a charter school, that they're just saving money and that there's no harm to the traditional public school, because these open attendance zones create problems from a business perspective on how we run schools and how we allocate dollars. But the biggest problem with the financial disadvantages that come with charter schools are in regards to something called legacy costs. All right, so legacy costs are the dollars that we as a community have committed to the employees and the former employees of our school district. Our school district has been in business for decades. We have retirees that we have financial obligations to in terms of things like their health care costs. All right, and so the healthcare cost of our retirees right now, and I'm going to use East Baton Rouge Parish as the example, are paid for by our current students through their MFP dollars. About $866 or so come out of the money allocated to educate our children to pay for retiree costs. All right, and so what we have to pay in healthcare costs is spread over our 40,000 or so students. When one of our children goes to a charter school, that charter school is exempt from paying their legacy costs. All right. Right now, the law in Louisiana does not require charter schools to take care of that kind of financial obligation. So what that means is, as charter schools increase in their number, so let's say we go from 40,000 children in a traditional public school to 35,000 in the traditional public school, more and more dollars have to be taken out of our classroom instruction to pay for legacy costs, because those charter school children are not having to honor the commitment that our community made to retirees. So what does that translate into? Last year, the little over 2,000 and something students in the Recovery School District cost every public student in East Baton Rouge Parish $168 out of their MFP. All right, so $168, every child in the East Baton Rouge Parish Public School System had $168 less spent on their education because our legislators did not mandate that charter schools pay legacy costs. And that is only going to build and build over time. So we are spending an enormous amount of money. We're unfairly burdening our traditional public school children when it comes to the financial obligations of an entire community. All right, and when you look at a school district like East Baton Rouge Parish, where over 80% of our children are free and reduced lunch, that is a burden that we cannot afford. We need every one of those dollars pumped into our classrooms. And so now there's this issue, right, that with the RSD and charter schools not being obligated to take on legacy costs. The issue, and that will get worse as charter schools proliferate and if the RSD is actually successful in drawing students into the Recovery School District. But then they create another problem for us when they take over our school buildings. Right now, the Recovery School District in Baton Rouge has 7,000 desks and less than 2,000 students. Those empty desks mean that those children who have chosen not to attend a Recovery School District are now in the East Baton Rouge Parish Public School System. That results in additional financial problems for the East Baton Rouge Parish School Systems. Now we have to put those 5,000 students in our existing schools, which means we have to add more desks, we have to add T-buildings, creating another kind of crisis for us. And so I'd just like you to think about it in terms of a kickoff at a football game. It's football season. And so what we're asking charter schools to do is to receive the ball on the 20, and we're asking our traditional public schools to start at the back of the end zone because of the financial constraints and the capacity constraints that we are placing on traditional public school systems because of the way we have set this up. Thank you so much.